Hey everyone, so 365 Days of Horsemanship. Today has been, so I feel like I've been going like cross country today, probably because I have. I started this morning in the New Forest in Milford-on-Sea, and then I drove all the way back home to do Lawrence and Mia. I had I felt good that I did them. I think maybe because I was a little rushed, the quality wasn't really there, but I think it was good for their consistency to get the time in. I didn't feel fully satisfied. Like with Lawrence, I feel like we didn't really get past the scratching game, and I needed a little bit more time to get through to the other side of that. It's also difficult because it's hot today, so I think it just was going to take longer anyway. Then he got fed, and that was fine, and so then I used him being fed as an opportunity to work a little bit on the touching distance. And it was actually really interesting how when he was eating, how actually much more open he was about the fact that he didn't really want to be touched, and there was all this like skin twitching going on and whatever. And then with Mia, I just practiced some of the stuff I've been doing with Kayleigh. I didn't really have time for anything more than a dominant session with her, but it fit quite well into the whole thing. She'd been brought up anyway for the farrier, and then the kids were going to do some stuff with her, so it was like, fine, you know, we're just slotting into the normal routine of the day. And that went nicely. There's definitely a little progress on the hindquarter yield. It's coming slowly. But I definitely feel like, particularly with Mia, where I put that pressure on her, if I was to put more pressure on, the time for her to emotionally come back down again to a place where she can immediately then afterwards look at the environment or look at me or look at something else or like be curious about the world in some way rather than like dissociated, asleep, like eye looking backwards in the head thing. I feel like if I increase the pressure too much, or if anyone increases the pressure, it basically just puts her in that mental frame of mind. And so I feel like I'm really learning to develop how to read that in her, and how to read where the pressure is manageable and she can kind of like be okay with it. You know, like the difference between like doing something really scary because you want to, because it's personal growth, you know, going to do a bungee jump when you're scared of heights to like get better at being scared of heights, and it's like you don't want to do it but you do want to do it, and like you're doing it consensually, you know, you've decided you're going to do it, versus like, you know, somebody putting a gun to your head and being like, bungee jump off this cliff, you know, like. So I feel like there's this difference where it's like, if I can put a little bit of pressure on and we can kind of work through it and then be okay straight away afterwards, for me, that feels like that was a reasonable amount of pressure to use. And versus, you know, like the other for me, that's my kind of personal opinion. And so that was nice to feel like I was just kind of working within those boundaries, and we got a couple steps and continue to kind of take little pauses in the middle for like those moments to be together without like, you know, putting the stick right down and like stopping what we were doing, right? So yeah, so that was good. I felt good about it. Then I went to get Elsa from the airport, which was so nice to catch up with her. We drove back to the New Forest, and I just finished my second session with my new friend, Abel, who I will be working with throughout the clinic. It's really interesting, actually. I had kind of like a 2-hour window to come and hang out with him, and I've probably only done about 45 minutes or an hour. But actually, in that time, he gave me everything that I was looking for. And so I was like, do you know what, actually this is a really good time to finish. Like an extra 40 minutes is not going to be make or break, but the quality of the moment that I'm leaving on might have a positive impact. So I think to review Abel at this point, before I bring him to the clinic tomorrow, I think I feel like he has more, so front to back, head to toe. Head's okay. Definitely if we start to go for the nose, there's some like mouthy behavior, some like sort of bitey behavior, whatever. But it's pretty chill. It's pretty manageable. I would definitely say he holds more tension in his neck and his shoulders and down to his front feet than he does kind of like barrel backwards. Like I've had some moments of like enjoyment, some nice focus changes when I have been like touching him in certain places, like on his hindquarters, like we've had a really nice focus change really quickly. And when he's stressed, he tends to like fix his neck straight and like eat really fast right in front of him with his ears kind of in that like slightly backwards position. So there's quite a lot of self-focus going on. Today I came out and I did my walking practice, and the walking practice I was looking for walking into a softening of the neck or a softening of the ears, like around to the front of the environment, or a look towards me that was really clear and felt soft. And today was much softer than yesterday. Definitely, I think his stress levels are less. I think that's sort of understandable anyway. That's going to happen naturally because yesterday I was new, and today I'm more familiar. So there's partially that anyway. But so that was nice to see that change. And so then I worked a little bit waiting for those small changes for a while. We did a little bit of work on touching areas at his shoulders. He still is reliably coming to investigate and then giving a nose touch for coming down to the sort of coronet bands of both front feet. So, but it was better today. I felt like I was less rushed, and on the left I actually had like a millisecond of like pausing there before I started to take my hand away, and then as I was starting to take my hand away, then he came, and so that's better. It's a very tiny increase of improvement on yesterday, so that's really good. So I guess we'll keep working on that. And yeah, managed to get all of the little spiky things out of his forelock today, which was really good. And I was really pleased with my timing on that actually, because I was working on it, and he was quite like sort of frozen in one focus, in like this self focus at the front. And then the next thing that happened was that he got concerned, frustrated, I think about a fly, but also then about the fact that the fly was happening while I was doing his forelock. So I obviously backed off, took a little walk around, came right back, just touched the area, and then immediately left and did flow. And I was quite pleased with that decision making on my part to like kind of prove to him that I could come back and do it better and leave before it was too much. Then we did a little bit of just like, it was passive leadership, just moving to a new place of flow on really small changes, making the game really easy. And just being like, yeah, now we can just move for this, and now we can just move for this little eye flick and this little ear flick, and worked our way around to the other side. I think that's when we did another down the front leg, which was improved again. And then I went back to the forelock and I was able to finish the forelock. And then at the end of that, he had a nice little moment of like a scratch, and then a different area of scratch, and then for himself rather than me helping him. And and that was really good. So then I decided to do some walking, and I just went out on a bigger walking practice, and I decided this time I was going to keep walking until we got like a full category change up off the grass to an environment focus, and that was going to be my like ending for the session. So I'm walking around, and as I'm walking, I can see lots of small changes that are improved on the ones we were having before. And that made me feel a little bit unconfident in myself, or uncertain of whether I should change my plan and accept those offerings. And the is it getting better or is it getting worse thing came into my head, where I felt like this is getting better and that's great and I'm really happy for him. But it doesn't mean I'm making the wrong decision to walk past those feelings if I think an even better one is coming. And when I've got the patience to wait for the environmental focus, then I know that a better one is going to come, because eventually he is going to look at the environment. Like, there is going to come a point of time where he's going to do that. Like, he's not going to spend his entire life for the rest of his days not looking at the environment ever again. And I think this comes down to like a core, like, feeling to break down for me, which is that supportive leadership is not a punishment. Passive leadership is not a reward versus supportive leadership being a punishment. Passive leadership is an intrinsic reward in that it's like peace and flow, but that doesn't mean that like supportive leadership is the opposite and you're punishing your horse somehow for not giving you the right answer. And that is a really powerful, I think, step for me to take, to feel today like I could move past these things, not because I didn't like them, but because I wanted to be really clear about a very specific thing that I felt was the most important change to make at that time. All these other changes were really great, but he's going to feel better on his own for making those changes. Me marking all those little moments is great, but I don't need to mark every single little moment for the rest of time. At some point, it is okay to say, I'm going to mark the next big moment. And it came, and it was really interesting to see a really repeatable pattern where when he moves from this state of grazing and looks up at the environment, that usually comes along with movement. It's like he doesn't often look at the environment with his feet still. It's usually, we'll look up at the environment and then we'll go for a walk. And like, as we're doing that, and then we'll go for a walk, we'll sort out our needs, we'll go for some water, we'll go over here, we'll have a roll day. And so we did all these things, and I was able to stay in flow with him. He's relatively easy to flow with. He's quite comfortable. He does move me on from certain positions, but there are plenty of moments where it's relatively easy to be in a flow with him. And so I'm still learning how to keep my steps in time with him, because he's a little bit smaller than the horses I'm used to working with. So I think my timing is just a little off in terms of getting my feet in the right place. I'm often noticing that I'm like in flow, or I should be in flow in like passive leadership, but my feet aren't the same as his feet, and I don't really quite know how that happened. So that's definitely also something that I need to work on and need to watch. It may be that actually he's pushing me out of flow more than I'm noticing, because he's changing his feet in a way that I'm not noticing. So that is maybe an interesting issue. But yeah, so he had a lovely little, we had a roll, we had this, we had that, we had a nice moment where I was crouching down and he was lying down. We had a nice little moment together. Then he decided to get up, I decided to get up with him. All of that stuff was really good. And yeah, he had a couple of moments of like focus change to the environment with the still feet. There is some tightness there, like he's looking out like he's concerned, but it was still really good. So I'm like, right, I'm gonna leave it there. As I'm going to leave, he then does another couple, and so I pause and I have those moments with him there. And there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, go back, like reward him for giving you what you wanted. But actually it's not about that. Like, me leaving is not a punishment. It's actually about being memorable and being like, yes, like that was it. So then the last thing that happens is what he remembers. So yeah, so I'm really happy with the session. And I felt like I wanted to leave it there. And I felt like I'm in a really good place for the morning. I'm quite tired as well, so I think it's nice to like have a bit of chill time now. It's really hot, and it's in about an hour and a half, Elsa's going to be doing her talk, so it's not like the evening is done for me yet. So I think it's good to just like have a chill, have some food, catch up with the people who are here, and yeah, just basically hang out really now for the next hour or so and just have a rest. And I'm really proud of myself for like really taking this time to rest and just being like, yeah, now I've got some time to rest, gonna do some resting. I feel like that's a really powerful mindset to be in. So yeah, looking forward to the clinic.